Right, ladies and gentlemen, I think the time has come now to open this up for questions. I can sense you're all biting at the leash. We have a first question up the back. Can you just say who you're directing it to on the panel? Or, ask them all.
Yeah, this is Murray Rumney from Agilent Technologies. It's kind of a general question to the panel. One thing that's not been covered this morning yet in any significant way, it's been occasionally mentioned, is the actual access network, the mobile network. And the discussion here is, from my point of view, is a bit like people discussing what to do with electricity before we've built the national grid. And I'm concerned about the evolution of the access network and the different technologies, the fragmentation of frequency spectrum, formats, etc. And from the point of view of application development, I'm interested to know, what do the application developers think is delivering the content that they are relying on, both in terms of the data rates and the coverage. So I'm not interested as much in the peak performance of some of these technologies, but in what's your baseline assumption for what delivery networks are out there, and how do you deal with the fragmentation of those, and what sort of data rates are you expecting to see consistent? Right now, the only two applications that are guaranteed are SMS and voice. Everything else is best effort. And the variation between what you can guarantee on and what's possible is growing rapidly with new technology. And these are things that I don't hear discussed much in the application community. So that's my question. Thank you.
All right. Well, Jim, if we go to you first.
Okay. I'll start off with networks. Traffic's growing fast. It will continue to grow fast. Radio access networks, certainly in the UK, most developed countries, will get to the point where they are really stressed. Operators will use every tactic they can to lay off traffic into alternative carriers. So that'll be femtocells, it'll be Wi-Fi access points, it'll be more efficient ways of writing applications, etc. Per meg charging will come in. I'm not sure. Maybe take some views from James as to whether there will be an element of a charge for signalling in that, so that more efficient apps, the writing of more efficient apps is stimulated. But I think the introduction of traffic charges is itself going to change the way that apps run. I hinted at it this morning. It was a very brief hint, I'll admit. But right now, using Google Maps costs the same as using maps on Nokia. The Nokia maps are on the handset, the Google Maps are downloaded as you go, but everyone has a fixed price, all-you-can-eat bundle. At the point that it's per meg charging, that changes. The way that applications and webs, the way that applications are written will have to change at that point. And I suspect that what it will do, I'm not sure how much of an effect it will be, but there will certainly be an effect where there will need to be more investment in the writing of an application to get it to work efficiently over radio access networks. Because instead of an app being free, and I download a free app, I will download an app and it'll come with an operating cost. And the operating cost is the fact it's running in the background all the time. And that's something which is building quickly, and it hasn't really happened much because iPhones up until recently, well, Android's been a long way behind. iPhones up until recently have been single tasking. Now they can multitask and run things in the background. You can get a lot more traffic, a lot more just noise across the network, and that's really going to impact the way that applications have to be written, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I couldn't agree more, Jim. Richard?
To be honest, even now you'll get a 2-star rating if you're putting lots of data across the network, because people go, your app is tuned through my network, it's tuned through my battery. So you have to compress it, send it, so it's really important already.
Yeah. Richard?
I mean, I'd like to answer this because I think this is one of the main compelling reasons for apps versus web apps is purely that the apps sit on your handset and they can use a lot less data than the web-based mobile services. So I think that's one of the core kind of reasons why apps will remain. And going back to kind of the historical aspect of app building, I mean, the apps and games that we did before, I mean, the data rates used to be very heavily charged. So we were very conscious of using that. And still now, when we're developing apps for the emerging markets, The data's still expensive there. So apps are still being built that are very sensitive to data. So I think this is a bit of a bubble that we're in now with a lot of free, very cheap mobile data.
Absolutely. James says, as our carrier
Yeah.
on the panel.
It's certainly an issue we recognise. So that the blog I plugged earlier, we've started to publish articles trying to be more informative on how to write good apps for mobile networks to take into account the resources and the scarcity of those and stuff like that. And we've done podcasts on that as well with our CTO. But there's definitely a disturbing trend because, you were talking about the need to innovate on the life cycle of the app and having that one-off payment. And it's kind of the same in the network world. The demand on the network is going like this, but the revenue from users, because of all-you-can-eat data pricing, is flat or declining. And you're getting this massive delta in terms of the investment needed in the networks to keep, the bandwidth up. So it's a big problem. I don't have the answer. There are new network technologies coming, which there's far more qualified people than me to talk about, things like LTE and stuff like that. But Jim's absolutely right about offloading traffic onto alternative networks like Wi-Fi and all of those sorts of things. They're all part of the carrier strategy. The other really kind of politically sensitive issue is quality of service. So from a technology perspective, you can deliver quality of service. So you mentioned SMS being guaranteed. In theory, you can do that over an IP network, but then you open up that whole net neutrality debate, and it's a very sensitive subject. So, like I say, I don't have the answer, but it's going to be a really hot area over the next couple of years in terms of where we go.
Gentlemen, anything else to add? Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, I'm very encouraged by the responses and the fact that people are aware. Signaling traffic is another huge issue, not just the data. And I believe that signaling traffic in the US is causing some issues with the iPhone, not the actual data.
It was, yes.
Yeah.
Presence,
Constant pinging and stuff like that, yeah.
So it's really important that that is understood and that there are some benchmark battery on the train and another one.
Yeah.
I don't believe there's a lot of really good ways of benchmarking a lot of these things. So we're in this kind of intermediate period of the possibility being out there, but people aren't quite yet sure how to match the possibility with what's reasonable to deliver.
Yeah. Another big driver of this issue is the web world, the web developer community moving to mobile and assuming that it's like fixed internet where you've just got a constant connection and writing very noisy applications that constantly hammer the network. That's a real issue. So it's down to us, to help educate rather than just bitch and moan and complain about it.
Are you going to come out with an Energy Star rating for apps at all?
It's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
There should be an app for that.
Yeah.
Sorry, we've gone meta. Anyone else?
That's a good idea.
Questions? Yes, sir. We've got. It's okay. We have got a microphone.